Hi everybody, so you might have noticed we've been doing a lot of 3D printing, and it's made me sort of question my fundamental belief in the purity of hand tools. And it's made me also look at something else, because of course 3D printers actually don't take up a lot of space. And I was thinking, well, if I don't need that much space, why am I renting that great big unit, paying that massive amount of rent and all the heat and the light? Could I condense everything down? And the answer is yes, of course I could. But it's also offered an opportunity, because I get asked a lot, what would I do to start out? What would I recommend as the basic tools and arrangement for starting out? And because I've been thinking about this, I'm going to move everything into my garage. So, come with me. So this is something I get asked all of the time. How do I make a start? And usually people are thinking of is tools. But actually, one of the things you're really going to need is space. Now, behind me is my garage, and I'm pretty sure this is fairly representative of most people's garage. We've put a pile of tut in there we haven't looked at in probably 10 years, and it just gets full. Well, you think you're going to use it for something else, and you never really do. So often there's a shed or a garage that has more space than you think, and of course, the first thing to do is to clean it out. So, let's clean it out. And the secret to cleaning out? Be brutal. Remember, it's not one of those things where you're going to save stuff. Oh, I might use that in 15 years' time. There's a bit of paper with no writing on it. We can make very good notes on that corner. You've got to think, have I used this in the last 3 years? Do I even know it's here? And if not, stick it in the bin, give it to charity, or sell it at a boot sale. Whatever it needs, clean it out. Okay, so we've done the back section. And now remember, I do a lot of presentations, so I want a presentation section, and that's what we're going to get on with. Now, the whole thing is just made out of second-hand kitchen cupboards that I had lying around. So let's join these up and make a presentation section. Okay, so it's 3 weeks later and we have finished. Now, I've done this specifically for me, and of course I do videos, so I need a presentation space. The space I'm in is actually 4 metres by 7 metres, which is a standard UK small car garage. I'm pretty sure though you could get away with even less, say 2.4 metres, because right on that side I've got a bench full of essential tools, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But it's the organisation of the space that really matters. And when you create an organisation that you can work in to do what you want to do, then you're going to find everything so much easier. So one of the biggest tools you're going to need is a space that you commit to. But let's have a look at the bench. So this is the workbench, and you often don't think about this, but the bench as a tool is itself. A good sturdy workbench that your things are fixed to is going to do a much better job. So on my bench you can see that I've got 3 things. I've got this thing, which is a mini lathe. Now that's actually a bit of a luxury tool and not essential. I do use it a lot, I find it very helpful, but I don't think it's an essential tool. This one, which is 35 quid's worth of pillar drill, gets so much use, it's unbelievable. Hey, so a pillar drill is really one of those essential things just for making holes the right size, that are square, and so that everything else will fit. And of course, it's fixed to the bench, so it's not going to wobble. And the last one is something people don't often think about, and it's right there. It's a bench vise. I mean, that's a sturdy bench vise, bolted to a sturdy bench, meaning I can saw, cut and file brilliantly, because I've got a good way of holding the work. Believe it or not, that bench was actually £200, which is more than a 3D printer. But still, an essential tool to have. And of course, those 2 tools, including the bench, are actually all you really need, and there's a very good reason. And the reason is these things. I mean, they're not an idol to worship. The desk they sit on is not a shrine to put tangerines and candles. It's a tool for your creativity, like any tool, and that's how to look at it. Now they're surprisingly cheap. Like I say, you can buy one of these for about £90. This particular one costs £250, but then my bench vise costs £200. So they're not terribly expensive, and they're not really what people used to think of them. That is, finicky and difficult and expensive. It costs about £1.30 to run this thing for 10 hours. Something like that. The filament's about £15 a roll, and if you think about the price of timber these days, filament is actually really comparable with buying timber. So the whole thing has really changed the way I, for one, am looking at this creative and building process, and now I'm thinking much more in terms of multimedia. That is, using the plastic, using traditional tools and using traditional materials, all together, rather than thinking this is one thing that we should ignore. To my list of things that I think you should get when it comes to setting yourself up, if you want to do these kind of things. First thing, space that you've got organised that's good for you. Pillar drill, bench vise, 3D printer, an assortment of hand tools, and you're going to be off and able to do this. And like I said, it has made me change the way I think about what I needed in order to be able to do this, and I've got that whole quart into a pint pot of my garage at home. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. I hope it was a guide to help you if what you're thinking about is setting up and doing this sort of stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for following the channel. And please do remember to like and subscribe.